Kia ora everyone and welcome. Today we're diving deep into something that's, well, literally the foundation of our country, New Zealand's infrastructure. We're looking at a new draft plan from Te Waihanga, the NZ Infrastructure Commission, that's all about our built environment and what it's going to look like for the next 30 years. So what's the big problem we're up against? And what's the plan to fix it? Let's jump in. All right, so right off the bat, the plan points to this really fundamental issue. And honestly, it's probably not what you're thinking. The problem isn't that we're not spending enough cash on our infrastructure. Nope. It's all about what we're actually getting for that money. It's a problem of value. And it kind of gets right to the heart of how we build and look after Aoteroa. And they use this quote from Kurt Vonnegut that just nails it. A flaw in the human character is that everybody wants to build and nobody wants to do maintenance. Man, that perfectly frames the tension, right? We all love a good ribbon-cutting ceremony for a shiny new project. But what about the boring stuff? You know, the absolutely critical work of just maintaining what we already have? This idea is going to be a major theme. And check this out. This slide lays out a paradox that's pretty staggering, actually. If you look at our spending as a chunk of our economy, New Zealand is right up there in the top 10% of developed countries. We're spending a lot. But, and this is a big but, when you look at the quality, the bang for your buck you get, we're way down in the bottom 10%. So we're throwing a lot of money at the problem, but we're just not seeing the results. Okay, so faced with that crazy situation, what do? How do we start spending smarter? Well, this is where Te Waihanga, the NZ Infrastructure Commission, steps in. They've put together this draft plan, and it's not just some big list of projects. No, this is meant to be a roadmap, a way to completely shift how we think, how we fund, and how we actually build our nation's future. At the heart of this whole plan is a concept they call forward guidance. Now, this isn't about having some kind of crystal ball and predicting the future. It's more about setting a smart, long-term direction, one that can, survive changes in government and adapt as our country changes over the next 30 years. So what is this forward guidance thing? Well, in a nutshell, it's about mapping out a path for investment that's realistic and sustainable. It means we have to look at the whole picture, all the different sectors, all their competing needs, and make some really deliberate choices. The goal is a plan that we can actually afford and actually deliver, not just some pie-in-the-sky wish list. And this guidance really comes down to answering three simple but massive questions. These are going to frame the rest of what we talk about. First, how much are we going to invest? Second, where is that money actually going to go? And third, and this is a big one, who's going to do all the work?
All right, let's dig into those first two questions, the how much and the where. Because this is where you really start to see that the plan isn't just about spending more money, it's about spending it in a completely different way.
So first up, how much cash are we talking about? The forecast suggests our investment level is going to stay pretty much where it's been historically, somewhere between 5 and 7% of GDP. And that's a really important point. The plan isn't saying, let's just open the floodgates and spend way more. The real secret sauce is in how that money gets spent. And that right there, that's the absolute core of the financial strategy. The big takeaway here is that the mix of spending is going to change, and not just a little bit, dramatically. This is all about rebalancing our national priorities to tackle future challenges instead of just doing what we've always done.
Let's look at the numbers to see what this actually looks like. This table shows the big shifts, and you can see some major movers here, right? Investment in electricity is set to almost double its share. That's all about decarbonization. Hospital funding, also set to double, which makes sense with our aging population. But on the flip side, you see the share for land transport and primary schools is actually forecast to go down. But, just looking at these big, top-level national numbers can be a bit tricky. A downward trend for a whole sector doesn't mean the need is shrinking for everyone, everywhere. The plan makes it super clear that we have to dig a lot deeper, especially when you think about all the different communities that make up Aoteroa. And this chart, it's the perfect example of why we need to do that. So while the overall number of school-aged kids might be going down, for Maori, it's the total opposite. The Maori population is much younger, it's growing, and there's a projected 30% increase in school age to Mariki. So what does that mean? It means even if the total education budget is moderating, there's a huge growing need for new schools and kura in Maori communities. It's just a powerful reminder that you have to include a Te Ao Maori worldview to plan effectively. Okay, so we've talked about the money, how much, and where it's going. That brings us to that critical third question. Who's actually going to build and maintain all this stuff? We're talking about the human side of things now, the tuahanga, our infrastructure workforce. When you look at our workforce right now, it's really interesting to see that building new stuff is, well, it's less than half the story. A massive 40% of our workers are focused purely on maintenance and looking after our assets. This takes us straight back to that Vonnegut quote, doesn't it? Maintenance is this huge, non-stop job that needs a really skilled and stable workforce. Look, the simple truth is, to get this future built, our workforce has to get bigger. But it's not just about more bodies on the job. It also needs to draw from a much, much wider pool of talent. We need more people, for sure, but those people also need to better reflect the true diversity of our country. And here's a number that really spells out how much room for growth there is. 11%. That's it. That's the percentage of women in the infrastructure workforce. Compare that to 47% of the total workforce in New Zealand. The plan doesn't see this as just a problem, but as a massive opportunity to bring fresh talent and new thinking into the industry. The plan also puts a spotlight on the absolutely vital and growing role of Maori in the tuahanga. Maori already make up 18% of the workforce and are a huge presence in areas like operating heavy machinery. And get this, the number of Maori-owned construction businesses shot up by 35% over the last decade. That's not just a number, that's a powerful foundation for building future partnerships and growth right across the sector. So as we start to wrap this up, it becomes pretty clear that this draft plan isn't about some single locked-in future. It's not telling us what will happen. Instead, it's laying out a whole series of really critical choices for us as a country. It's a call to action, really, to get strategic about where we're headed. I think if there's one thing to take away, it's this. The plan is a map. It's not a magic wand. It shows us the landscape, it points out the big hills we have to climb, and it suggests the best ways to get there. But it can't walk the path for us. Whether any of this actually happens, well, that comes down to the choices we all make next, and whether we commit to seeing them through. And the report leaves us with another brilliant quote, this time from one of our own, Ernest Rutherford. And it just perfectly sums up the whole spirit of this thing. He said, "When we don't have money, we have to think." It's all about a shift in mindset. The answer isn't just to keep throwing more and more money at everything. The real solution is to think, to be smarter, to be more efficient, and to be way more strategic with the money and people we've got. And so that leaves us with the final and most important question. The map is there. We can see the challenges. We know the investment needs to shift. We know the workforce needs to grow. And we know there are tough choices to be made. So the question is for all of us, really. Are we, as a country, actually ready to make them?